Colony.
Justin Archer.
Doing a video from my upstairs in my house.
We just wanted to touch on a couple subjects of interest to us and give our measured opinions on them. And if you agree, we'd like to see in the comments. If you disagree, we'd like to see in the comments. Please let us know what you think of these topics and these events. So I think I'm going to let Colin kick off with his.
So first, we're going to talk about Beto and the comments he made during the Democratic primary Thursday night. Now, I personally did not watch it, but I certainly heard about it, and I think we all heard about it. To quote him word for word, "Hell yes, I'm going to take your AR-15. Hell yes, I'm going to take your AK-47.
I was watching. He definitely said that.
Now that sets a very, very dangerous precedent, because for years the Democrats have told people, cats in the shot here, that that's a myth made up by the NRA, and we don't ever want to take your guns. We don't want to take your guns. We just want common sense, background checks, and red flag laws, and basically confiscation without due process. Now he's talking about total confiscation of two types of firearms, two of the most common types for self-defense, at least as far as long guns go. And it certainly won't stop with that. It'll be AR-15s, and then it'll be AK-47s, and then it'll be semi-auto rifles, and semi-auto shotguns, and then bolt-action rifles, and pump shotguns, so on and so forth. Slippery slope. Anyways,
I mean, not to mention just the fact that if they have to take away the AR-15s and the AK-47s, why not take away the SKS, the SCAR 16?
Yeah.
Why not take away the FN FAL? Why not take away your M1 Garand?
Yeah, and for years they've said, oh, that's fiction that the NRA comes up with to scare people into voting Republican. Turns out they finally admitted to the fact that it's not fiction. And I didn't hear a single Democratic candidate try and walk that back at all. I heard Amy Klobuchar didn't really agree with it, but she didn't really disagree with it.
Yeah.
Everybody else pretty much just went along with it. And, I don't think that's something that they're going to, now that Beto has set that precedent and he's opened that door, I don't think any of them will walk that back.
I have a cat on me. I don't think they're going to walk it back either. And honestly, I think this is just them saying the quiet things out loud.
Yeah.
That in the long run, the same is true with every Marxist and socialist influenced politician. Their goal is to disarm you so that they can have more control over your life without you resisting.
And they've wanted it for years. And, I think I think he thought part of that was him pandering because Beto sucks so bad at running for president. But at the same time, he knows that that's what the most leftist people in this country wants. And he's trying to run all the way to the left to try and get votes. But again, he opened up the door.
He did. Well, it's not necessarily the Pandora's box. It's more like they just drew the curtain and now we can see inside the window.
Yeah. So if you're ever wondering, what's the hard line that we're not going to cross as legal gun owners and patriots, that would be the line.
This cessation of property.
Yeah. So that's fun. So we can move into our next talking point. Also has to do with Mr. O'Rourke, Richard Francis O'Rourke.
That's right. Apparently, a young Texas representative decided to weigh in on the matter and tell him that his AR-15 was ready.
Briscoe Cain, I've actually heard of him before. He says some cool stuff. But yeah, so they took that as a death threat on Twitter, certainly. And you guys know how fascist Twitter can be.
That's right.
And they basically froze his account, and O'Rourke tweeted back. Well, before they froze his account, O'Rourke tweeted back that was a threat on his life, and he shouldn't own an AR-15, and neither should anybody else.
That's right.
With the exception of his armed security forces. So he's taking that as a death threat. Briscoe isn't too worried about it. He basically explained that come and take it is a saying in Texas, and that's what he was basing that upon. I'm sure we all say that, but I guess it originates in Texas. I didn't know that.
Well, there was a picture of the cannon too from the Revolutionary War. It was a picture of the cannon that said, "Come and take it," because that's what started the Revolutionary War. Was the British were coming to seize the cannons that the colonists had in their villages.
They also tried door-to-door gun confiscation as well.
And it's very common. That saying is very common. Even in the 300, they talk about Persians, come and get them, you know. Well, that translates to the phrase Molan Labe, which is actually what King Leonidas said to the Persians when they said that they should throw down their spears. He says, well, if you want them, come and get them. It's Molan Labe, come take.
Yeah.
And everybody who wears a shirt that says Molan Labe on it, that's basically saying the same thing. That if you want my gun, you can come and get it from me personally, and it will be ready and waiting for you.
As you're saying, as you're wearing a shirt that says good vibes.
Yeah, good vibes only. I try to be happy.
I like the irony there.
It's not like you have ill will against a person, but if a person tries to come and take something from you, then your resistance isn't necessarily you attacking them, because they attacked you first to take something of yours. So
Exactly.
your resistance is self-defense at that point.
Yeah, and I said this in an earlier video. I don't know if it'll be posted by the time that we post this. Probably not.
It should be.
But I made the remark that, and it's an established saying, but it rings true. When tyranny becomes law, resistance becomes mandatory. And this is something that we can vote our way into, but the only way out of it's going to be through a lot of hard-fought victories and bloodshed, I think.
That's right.
Not advocating for anything there, but
Marxist-based governments, they often come to power through a violent revolution. However, we've seen in Venezuela, they voted themselves into that situation. And in Germany, as many people want to be butthurt about it, it's very true. That was Marxist influence, and they voted themselves into that situation as well.
and the British voted to de-arm themselves, the Canadians voted to de-arm themselves.
And to give themselves up to unaccountable bureaucracy.
Yes, and I don't know if you knew this about Canada. About 10 years ago, they tried a universal long gun registry. Just rifles, not handguns. And they actually got rid of it. And the reason is when they first did this, they projected it would only cost $2 million to establish this national rifle registry. And that would cover everything. Now, the actual figures that came in, it was only 13 to 16% of people who should be registering actually were. And the program cost well over $1 billion a year. I don't know the exact figures, but that's close. You can Google that. It's fact.
We'll go figure that the government underestimated how much they were going to spend on something and the efficiency at which it would achieve.
Yeah, and they talk about national gun registries and gun buybacks. The way the buybacks work typically, they don't offer cash. It's usually like a $200 gift card or an Amazon card.
Maybe tax credit. Huh?
What people will do is they'll take the oldest, shittiest thing in their gun safe. They'll keep everything else. They're not going to turn in their $1,000 AR-15 for a $200 gift card.
Nope.
So they'll take Grandpappy's old single shotgun and go turn it in and get their $200. Or there's people that will actually go to the hardware store and weld up steel pipe and wooden springs and make fake guns. And as long as they resemble guns, they will take them.
See, I can believe something like that because as long as there's a government program that's dishing out money, someone's going to find a way to use it. That's what
happened in Chicago. That's what happened in Australia when they did it. So, they talk about these registries and these buybacks, and the registries definitely don't work. That just got tried 10 years ago by our neighbors up north, and they're way more liberal than we are. And the buybacks, people abuse them, and they never get the guns they're after.
Yeah, even in the sense whether it works or doesn't work, how much it costs, how much it should cost, how many people are actually going to sign up. The fact of the matter is that we have a right to be secure in our documents and papers, and that includes a right to privacy, including the things that we own. The government does not have a right to know everything that we own.
No. As I sit here with the gun safe open, but I'm not worried. Come and take it.
Come and take it.
Come and take it.
So, we have another interesting article that we wanted to talk about. This one we found on Yahoo News. You can find it if you just look up the name Sally Hazelgrove or the Crushers. Now, what happened is a young man named Kobe Richardson, when he was 16, got shot 14 times by a person he thought was a friend. And he admitted himself he was hanging out in the gang life. This is a very sensitive subject, and I've talked to a few people about it, and I want to make sure that I'm very careful about everything I say, because I don't want to be misconstrued as a person trying to attack leftism and at the same time damage liberalism, because I see these two things as separate. And sometimes I see that leftists use a narrative they can spin as liberal to try to make a narrative either against their political opponents or to just in general sow dissent and hate. And I see this in this article here. And it's a real shame because we should not judge people on their appearance, and we shouldn't make judgments about a person's decision. You should not assume a person's motives, and I find it highly irresponsible for people with huge reputations, movie directors, to be making racial insinuations about the motivations of a person who is trying to help a person for making a decision on their own. What happened is this young man, after getting shot, had found his way into an organization for youth that is called the Crushers in Chicago. And this young man decided that he wanted to change his lifestyle, so he decided to have his dreadlocks cut off. Now, we're not saying that gang life and dreads go hand in hand, because they don't. And nobody should say that. But to this guy, the way he presented himself to the world in that way was a way to present himself into that culture that he was inculcated in. So in order to escape the culture he had put himself in, he needed to change the way he presented himself to the world, and asked a woman to cut his hair, who just on the misfortune of luck and modern leftism happened to be a white woman. But this same white woman is the president of this organization who has moved into Chicago and tried to help the neighborhood. And I've seen some of the appraisals, and I've seen some of the criticisms, and I'm not trying to make any judgments about the organization, but overall it seems like they do good work. And I think it's highly unfair for people to make racially motivated insinuations about what this woman thinks, why this was done. Now, this was the decision the young man himself decided to make. Nobody made that decision for him.
And he just wanted to, give himself a new appearance, a new outlook on life.
New outlook on life, and change the way he presented himself to the world. Now, I myself used to dress in gothic punk apparel with leather bracelets and necklaces and chains. Now, I changed the way I present myself to the world too. And that's not because I was trying to change the way I presented myself to the world. It's because I changed. And because I changed, the way I presented to myself to the world changed. So these things go hand in hand. This is common psychology. Everybody knows this. One of the ways to make a change in your life is to change your appearance. And it helps your psyche.
Just like buying a new shirt.
It's just like buying a new shirt, changing the way you dress, putting on nicer clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And in what sense? I don't know. It doesn't matter. You want to wear a kimono or a three-piece suit? I don't care. You want to wear board shorts instead of sweatpants? I don't care. If you change the way you look, you'll change the way you feel.
And the sad thing about it is they take an organization that happens to be run by a white lady, doing serious good, with hundreds of youths in Chicago, one of the most dangerous cities in the world. She's doing something actively to fight the gang problem out there, and to correct people, but help people correct their own lives. And because of the media, as they always do,
wanting something to talk about.
Yeah, putting their narrative spin on it. She's getting doxxed, I'm sure.
I'm sure she's getting doxxed,
harassed.
Hate mail. I emailed them today looking for a response, and I didn't get one. And I'm sure the reason I didn't get one is because they're just done monitoring their email right now.
Yeah.
They're probably just tired of the hate mail that they're getting. Because I went on the Twitter threads for RzstProgramming, who tweeted out that this was racist. And you could just see it, tweet after tweet after tweet of hateful rhetoric, claiming this is just the white man trying to keep the black man down and change their appearance and say that the dreadlocks are not, a good thing. And nobody ever said that. And it seems to me kind of racist to make the insinuation that a white lady has these beliefs just because she cut somebody's dreads off, when we know firsthand it was the boy that made the decision. It wasn't the woman. It was the 16-year-old boy who made that decision for himself to have his dreadlocks cut off.
I'm sure he was probably super proud of it.
He probably was. And to drag all of them through the mud about it is just unfair. And nobody should be doing it. And if you feel bigger for having joined the call by RzstProgramming to drag these people through the mud, I think that you should look on the inside and seriously question whether or not you have some hate in your heart. Because it's fair to criticize an organization, it's fair to question motives, but it's not fair to assume motives, and it's not fair to blatantly smear things as racist when they're not. It's a narrative ploy, and in the long run, it does nothing but divide people. Now, Kobe made a few statements himself, and he said that he was very thankful for this organization because when he was a kid, these kind of things didn't exist in his neighborhood. There wasn't a youth group keeping kids off the street, and now there are. And he said people did not know that woman, and that she had been there for him when he got shot. Now, it's very touching, and you can assume her motives all day, but obviously she harbors no ill will towards the man, and probably does not hate him because of his race, or hate the way he dresses because of his race. And I think it's incredibly disingenuous to make the assumption and then try to spin a narrative off of that. And I think people should look inside yourselves and judge yourselves first. Remove the log from your eye before you try to take
Just have a little common
the sliver
decency.
from your brother's.
Common decency.
It is a little common decency. And again, I don't want to appear like I'm dogging on liberalism. I understand that there's this fear that people are just looked down upon because of their dreads. But nobody in that organization, and Kobe himself, did not make that connection. And I think it's unfair to make a connection on motives where they themselves did not come from in their motives. They said where their motives came from, and it's quite clear that they did not come from anything like that. Now the cat's playing with the light.
That's Rosie. That's my cat. We've had her longer than we've had our daughter. She's kind of a bitch.
But we don't want to dog on liberalism. We like freedom. We like people being able to dress how they want, present themselves the way they want, and nobody should judge anybody on the outward appearance. A soul is a soul, and this is just a covering. This is just a covering for a human soul, and we cannot make a judgment on a mind or a soul based on what it looks like on its outside. What a person says and what a person does in their actions is how we make judgments about people. Period and end of story.
That was well put.
So, we had another topic. You ready?
On a happier note.
Well, I don't know if it's a happier note. At least it's not a domestic note this time.
No. I'm sure everybody's heard by now about the oil field in Saudi Arabia that got struck
by drones.
Struck by drones. Yeah, I lost my words there for a second.
I heard that they think it might be a militia group. That's
7 in total. I think they were. I can't even pronounce the name of what they are. It's a Yemen-based militia that is backed by Iran.
Okay.
Allegedly. They originally took the credit for the attack, and now Iran is backtracking and saying they don't have anything to do with these guys. I don't know how true that is. The important thing, I think, is the ramifications of all these things happening in the Gulf. You know, they just seized the British oil tanker this morning. This attack happened last night while we were sleeping. And they're saying just this oil field burning, I don't think we're going to feel it yet because the oil that's already on the ships is already on the ships.
Well, and our reserves are very, very strong.
Yes. And Trump did say that he was going to release some of our federal reserves on crude oil just to help soften the blow. But they're saying even with that, Wall Street has been all over the place in petroleum.
Our government will probably provide aid to try to help rebuild too.
And I'm sure because, that's, without Saudi Arabia, we don't have oil, or we have to rely on Russia for oil.
We should be. I mean, we're basically independent, but we don't use all that we have.
But they're also saying in 3 to 4 weeks' time, I've seen that they're projecting gas could jump from anywhere between 10 cents a gallon and $1 per gallon.
So that's not very much, honestly, compared to what it was in 2008. I watched gas climb several dollars.
Well, I tell you what, when I first got my driver's license in 2012, gas was still $4 a gallon.
Yeah.
So I had a brand new truck and a brand new driver's license. I couldn't drive anywhere because I couldn't afford to.
I think the small term pain might be not, it's not going to be so bad this time, and I think we should breathe a slight sigh of relief on that one. And I don't think that we're on the brink of war, because if it is just a militia group, we're not talking about state conflict. We're talking about terrorist conflict.
Yes, but there also was just last week the embassy in Afghanistan was attacked as well.
Yeah.
So it seems like terrorism in the Middle East is on the rise again, not just in Afghanistan, but all over that region, especially in the Tehran, Iran
I'm going
region.
to need some more data points to see if it's on the rise.
Yeah, but just it appears to be, from what I've seen. It seems like as soon as North Korea kind of backed down and calmed down, Iran bumped right. And I know they're in the news cycle every couple of years, doing stupid stuff, but it seems like they just haven't gone away. Usually you hear one story, and then 2 years will go by, and you'll hear another story. It's like,
and you know what's sad?
bam, 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 bam.
I've had lots of conversations on the internet with people from Iran, and they're very nice people, very nice, God-fearing people.
Well, Iran used to be a somewhat civilized country.
And they, just like us, a lot of times, they don't trust their government, they don't like their government. We don't trust our government or like our government. There's common ground between the people of Iraq and Iran and the United States, and it's a shame that there has to be a conflict, but it is the government of Iran, and more importantly, it is small actors who believe they're acting in service of the government of Iran, or in some way believe they're supporting that ideology. And it's real shameful. I don't think that things are necessarily going to get better. I'm not sure if things are actually getting worse, because things like this have been going on for a long time. A long time. Since I can remember. And
They say the Middle East is where armies go to die.
and in the long run, I don't think that we should be getting involved. I doubt we will get involved in a material sense with boots on the ground.
I would disagree with that. I think that I could see, because Saudi oil is so strategic to us, I could see us putting security forces on the ground. I don't know if we'd be putting Marines down, but I know that there's all kinds of private government military contractors that they utilize.
I'm not sure, because I've
Well, they don't tell you that, but I've talked to some alleged private contractors on the internet that they'll hire for mercenary work in Afghanistan, Pakistan, places where we can't operate with flags on our uniforms. So I could see us having a presence there. I don't know if it'll ever be reported, but I would pretty much guarantee there'll be Americans in those areas.
Some Cambodia stuff.
Yeah. Or freaking what was the place that special ops team got ambushed and killed in Africa, in a country we totally weren't supposed to be in? Was it Congo?
The Black Hawk Down scenario. Was that Rwanda?
Something like that. But so we're all over, and
I don't know.
I'm sure that we've got people, places we don't even want to know about. So I'm sure there'll be some Americans there.
Yeah, and in the long run, the only thing that we can do is pray for peace, but be ready for conflict.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, question the motives of our politicians and military-industrial complex at every turn, as they deserve it, and that is our jobs as citizens and voters.
Not just the government. You should question everything these days. Every bit of data that gets fed to you, you have to check and cross-check
So
these days.
how do you feel about John Bolton being removed in the wake of all this?
I think he's kind of a loose cannon, personally.
I agree. I didn't like
I didn't
him in the
feel.
position,
Yeah, I think he's a lot like Trump.
but he doesn't have the policies of Trump. He's not.
No.
He's an interventionist instead of a non-interventionist.
Yeah. But he's just kind of in your face and just hard line. Which I don't mind somebody in that high position being no nonsense when it comes to this stuff. But I think he's too open and in your face about it.
And at the same time, like you're talking like overthrowing countries is easy.
Oh yeah,
And like
you're
there's
talking.
just not consequences.
You're
for
talking about millions of lives. We should probably have somebody who's level-headed.
that. Someone who's level-headed
and
and
that's-
doesn't think with his gun.
Or with his ego. That is I am a supporter of President Trump, but that is my biggest critique of him. Is he does a lot of things based on ego, and based on reaction to what people say about him.
Yeah, I was not originally a Trump guy, but I tell you, one of the things that did sell me on him,
Ted Cruz all the way.
One of the reasons I could always support him is he admitted right off the bat the country has done wrong things in Saudi Arabia, or not Saudi Arabia, in the Arabian Peninsula and Iraq, and that we don't need to be there, and we shouldn't be trying to overthrow countries and install democracies. That the decision of those people to govern themselves how they see fit is their choice and not ours, and we shouldn't be deciding what that should be for them, because we aren't them. We should govern ourselves and let them govern themselves.
You know, isn't this wild? For years and years and years, the leftists were against the Iraq and Afghanistan war, and as soon as Trump says that he doesn't want to be involved in really any other foreign countries, he's a white nationalist and he's Hitler.
Hey, when I was more on the left, I also didn't trust media.
Yeah, I don't trust any media.
And I don't know what happened there, but all of a sudden that seems to be a totally different story for a bunch of the people on the left. They seem to think that the media is now infallible.
Yeah, oh yeah. Again, because that is their outlet of control. You know, for years and years and years, you know, television was largely left-leaning. You know, with the exception of a couple networks, but even now they're all. But you know, they have to preserve that because that is their outlet.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it was good having this conversation. We'll make sure to put the links for the information in the description box, and we hope that you enjoyed. Please like, share, subscribe, comment in the comments section. Tell us what you think, and we hope you all have a good night.
See ya.